welcome to Arbitral Insights, a podcast series brought to you by our international arbitration practice lawyers here at Reed Smith. I'm Jose Estegaraga, Global Head of Reed Smith's International Arbitration Practice. I hope you enjoy the industry commentary, insights, and anecdotes we share with you in the course of this series, wherever in the world you are. If you have any questions about any of the topics discussed, please do contact our speakers. And with that, let's get started.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the latest edition of our Arbitral Insights podcast series. It's great to have you listening in, and we hope you'll enjoy this session. I'm certainly looking forward to it immensely. And there are many reasons for that, but it's the latest in our series of inspirational people in international arbitration. And I'm delighted to have with us today someone who certainly fits that bill in every possible way, and that is Neeti Sachdeva, who is the Secretary General and Registrar at the Mumbai Centre for International Arbitration. Hello, Neeti.
Thank you, Gautam. It's really a pleasure and honor to be here, and thank you for thinking of me. Calling me inspirational, I feel so elated, and also a sense of greater responsibility of what I have to say in the next 20-25 minutes.
Well, I know it's going to be a great session today, Neeti. I think one of the things that always interests our listeners, Neeti, is the background to those of our guests who come onto our podcast series. And so I wonder if I could just begin by asking you to share with us a little bit about your career background before you joined the MCIA.
Yes, Gautam, I'll be delighted to do that. I think I will pick it up from the point of how I got interested into arbitration, because that will lead it into very nicely of how my career really planned out. Though I must say not that everything I decided to do happened. Many things just came by as well. So I was in the fourth year of my law college, and with the first batch of our university. And, from somewhere we just heard about a Whiz-Moot competition happening, and you have to go to Vienna to do it. There are no India national rounds. So me and one of my classmates at that time, we were just very avid mooters. We didn't want to leave any opportunity. So we said, let's try this out. What is this whole beast of arbitration is all about? We just loved the way we, started off. I remember starting in October, going up to February, March, the whole 5 months of preparation, reading about arbitration. I think at that point in time, I knew that this is exactly what I want to do. But I did not know in what form, shape that I'm going to do it. But arbitration is all I wanted to do. And then when I graduated, I had the, a very great pleasure of working with two distinguished judges as their law clerk. Both of them now, one of them is retired. She was the first female Chief Justice of Jammu and Kashmir, Justice Geeta Mittal, and Justice Muralidhar, who's currently the Orissa High Court Chief Justice. And I learned a lot from them. And then I went on to do my master's. And I think it's a part of my life that I always choose a little different things, is what my family tells me all the time. When everybody used to go to US or UK for their LLM, which seemed to be a natural choice, I picked up Stockholm University in Sweden. And everybody went like, why Stockholm? And I'm like, I think I love their program. It's just a great program in international commercial arbitration. That's all that I want to do. And as they say that, rest is history. From there, I went on to intern with ICC. I worked with Freshfields for a short period of time in Paris office. And then LCIA was opening its office in India. And I would say, as luck would have it, I would just happen to be in India at that time when they were interviewing. LCIA liked me, I would say. And I became the first deputy registrar for them in their India office. Spent some time in the institution, learned how an institution works from some great people back at home in LCIA. Then I decided to go back into private practice. So I worked with two of the big law firms in India, ELP and Trilegal, both in Delhi and Mumbai. And then the MCIA just came by, and I was like, why not? I've learned how an international institution set up its office in India. If we have an opportunity to set up something grounds up, let's do that. I think the whole feel of creating something grounds up for the first time in India is what was very challenging, and I really liked it. So that's my career path into arbitration.
That's fascinating, Neeti, and you're truly a global citizen in a global world of arbitration. So, very appropriate, and that's a really exciting journey you've had into your current role. Now, the MCIA, I know, our listeners will be very aware of just what an amazing progress has been made in terms of the MCIA's reputation, its work, the development of institutional arbitration in India. And this podcast is going to be going out just prior to the 50th anniversary of the MCIA. And you've certainly seen a lot of change, development, progress in that time. I wonder whether you could share with our listeners a little bit of some of your thoughts about the current work of the MCIA and some of the objectives you've got going forward for the MCIA, because one of the things that's obviously part of this is India has been developing immensely as a center for international arbitration. The courts have become very pro arbitration. There's a real desire for arbitration to develop in India. So I wonder if you could just share some thoughts on that, please, Niti.
Yes, thank you, Gautam, for that. I would say that for MCIA, our first and foremost objective has been that we have to bring in the international best practices of arbitration in India. And for that overarching objective, I would say that we could probably classify them into three, different aspects of it, which we focus on. And I would say that the objectives and the work done by MCIA have been quite in hand. The first one would really be bringing in the efficiency in the dispute resolution process in India. We all know of and that how Indian courts have always been criticized and for long have been criticized for a backlog of cases. Though I think that the criticism is really a little more harsh than it should be. With the population that we have, the kind of disputes that we have, the sheer number of disputes is just huge. In commercial disputes, at least, arbitration has now become the go-to space for dispute resolution. So I think what MCIA's objective has been to create efficiency. There is a time-bound dispute resolution which is there. And for having that efficiency, again, I would say that we have focused on two main pillars of arbitration. One would be to create an arbitration bar. And I'm mindful to say that because we do realize that MCIA is not going to be creating an arbitration bar, but we can actually create an ecosystem whereby facilitating to create an arbitration bar maybe 5 years from now or 10 years from now. And what we have done in that space is created the Young MCIA. And with the Young MCIA, the motto really is catch them young, train them young, right? So they understand the international best practices. They act as a catalyst to tomorrow creating that nuanced bar for arbitration in India. And I think the second one, of course, which goes hand in hand, is creating a pool of arbitrators. It is a cliche, but I would still repeat it. Your arbitrations are only as good as your arbitrators. And if we do not, as an institution, create that larger pool, we somewhere feel that we would not be able to achieve for what we have set out to do. For that, we conduct training programs. We've tied up with CIAB as well, and we do CIAB training courses in India. And I think it's immensely helped us also to create a larger pool. So that is what I would say is the broad objectives for MCIA.
Thank you, Neeti. And one of the things, and I must say, I wish you all the success in the world as you progress. And I know that with you leading the charge, the MCIA's work is going to be particularly fruitful. And I look forward to seeing that develop. I must say, because in the last 30 years of my practice, I've seen a lot of change. And I remember when I first qualified, India was just opening up in terms of the outside world. A lot has changed, and it's wonderful to see all the change that you're behind, Neeti. One of the things that you mentioned a little earlier was, and this really goes back to something we can all relate to, is that we're all the product of the mentorship and the inspiration that we receive from people upon whose shoulders we stand in order to achieve whatever we can achieve in our careers and our lives. And you mentioned that one of your great mentors was a very prominent female judge. And unfortunately, there aren't enough of them in India. There are It's changing, and it's very likely that the next Chief Justice of India is going to be a lady, which is wonderful to see. But I wonder what your thoughts are on the topic of increasing diversity in international arbitration, which is one of the topics which, as you know, is an evergreen topic. And rightly so, because we've got to bring change into the world of arbitration and other areas, of course. But I wonder whether you could share some thoughts on how you see diversity developing in international arbitration.
Yes, Gautam, definitely. But I must first thank you for your kind words, of saying that a lot, is being done in the institutional arbitration. I have led it. I think MCIA is a collective effort of a lot of stakeholders, and it's not only my effort. But yes, I'm very glad to be able to make that small change, and I shall try and continue to do that. But coming to your question on diversity, I think it's a very, very important topic. And I'm very glad that we have started to talk about it and recognize that we need to do something about it. Of course, MCIA, as well as me personally, we are, we have pledged to take the pledge to increase the diversity. So we're working towards that direction. In fact, we very recently at MCIA, we expanded our MCIA council. And of the 4 new MCIA council members, we have 3 who are women. So that's our commitment to increasing the diversity in that sense. But I personally feel this way, Gautam, that women can play a very important role in dispute resolution. And the reason I say is that we have had some great litigators, women who are working in the litigation field, and they had to somewhere take a break from their career for natural reasons of raising a family, which is equally important. And it can become quite daunting to manage your diaries with the court practice that we have in India, and to manage your family responsibilities back at home. So I think arbitration and mediation also in that sense provides a great opportunity for women especially, where they can forge a career in the field as an arbitrator, as a mediator, manage their diaries pretty well, and continue to contribute to the field of dispute resolution. I also think that women are natural at dispute resolution. So they don't, they have that innate ability to resolve disputes. I think it's ingrained in us from the very time that we were born, and we have it naturally coming. So they can definitely add a lot to this field. So we have a long way to go, and we have to start somewhere. And I think the work has started in that field already.
Now that's great. No, thank you, Niti. I know it's a developing topic, and it's one that's very live in all our jurisdictions. The pledge, of course, is something that so many of us are passionate about. And as we've seen change, we need to see more change. A change brings more change in itself. And I often think if I look back over the last several years and cases I've been involved in, we just don't see enough female arbitrators, and there just aren't enough of them. So just to follow on something that you very interestingly raised just now, I've often wondered how we can all do more to ensure that we are widening the pool of arbitrators, and that's something you mentioned. It's very important. And by the way, I do agree with you that women are natural dispute resolvers. I completely concur with you. But how do we, apart from ourselves in cases, putting forward female arbitrator appointments, what more can we collectively do to ensure that we are widening that pool as far as possible? Are there ways, for example, that institutions like the MCIA can really reach out to some of the prominent lawyers in India, female lawyers in India, and encourage them to begin taking appointments? And also, there's the broader topic of how can we involve more foreign arbitrators, women arbitrators, and diverse arbitrators in cases cited in India. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on that, please, Niti.
Absolutely. I think as an institution, we have a greater responsibility, Gautam. And we are very conscious of that as well. What we have done and we will continue to do, like I said, is that when we are doing arbitrator appointments, we make it a point always, to put forth more names of women arbitrators who could be considered by the council, So under the MCIA, we have the MCIA Council appointing the arbitrators, and we make it a point that when the recommendations are sent to them, there is an equal representation from both women and men arbitrator. I think another thing that we have to do, Gautam, is that both as a arbitration practitioner, either on an institution or a law firm, I think we have to genuinely promote women to be able to, for a lack of a better word, go out there and market themselves. It's very important to be visible. Until and unless you are visible, you are known, it'll be very difficult to get your first arbitrator appointments as well, or for somebody to be able to appoint you as well. So, even for law firm partners, young practitioners, lawyers practicing in the courts, I think it's great for them to reach out to institutions. In fact, Gautam, I'm not too sure if you read it, but MCIA started this thing of calling for arbitrators. So we had this out call for arbitrators where, rather than me just reaching out to the people that I may be aware of or reaching out to people who they may be aware of, why don't we open it up and ask for people to write to us to say that we want to be arbitrator? And that is one way I think we can promote them to take that step to start considering arbitrator appointments as a conscious decision of their career path to go forward. And that's some of the things which come to my mind as of now.
No, that's fantastic, and no, and thank you, Neeti. I guess just as we wrap up sort of the last part of the podcast, I always find it very interesting to ask our guests some more general questions, a little bit more separate from the strict world of international arbitration or dispute resolution, and this is no different. So I'd be very interested in a few things. One is, and of course, you've already mentioned the inspiration that you've had in terms of when you were training, you interned with some very prominent judges. But I wonder if you could just share with us sort of what inspires you, what pushes you to do what you do and get better and better and better. I wonder if you could just share some thoughts on that.
I think there are two things I would like to say. One is that what pushes me to do things is I would definitely say my parents. From the very initial years of my education, they've given me an environment and the possibilities to think out of the box and to push the boundaries. But I think the underlying principle which they always told me was that have the passion and be sincere towards what you do. And I think I've followed that till now, and I've been pretty happy with what I've been doing. But what inspires me in institutional arbitration, Gautam, I think is that every time, and I'll be very candid about it, every time that I read anywhere that two Indian parties get out of India to resolve their dispute, I think it somewhere saddens me a bit, if I may say so. And I feel that why, with the best of the legal minds, best of the lawyers that we have, why can't we have these disputes resolved within India? What is it that they have to get out of India and resolve this? And that has been inspiring me, or that has been pushing me to create an environment within India where, at least for Indians, and hopefully in the next couple of years, where you have foreign parties who can very confidently say that we can resolve our commercial disputes through arbitration within India. Why do we need to think of somewhere else? So I think that's my inspiration.
No, that's really interesting because like you, I've often sort of wondered when the time will come when Indian parties will arbitrate in India. So let me just finish off with a couple of things. One of the things that I know a lot of our younger practicing lawyers always find very interesting is when they get some tips for what they should be doing as they try to build their careers in international arbitration. So I wonder if you have any practical tips for aspiring international arbitration lawyers.
Thank you for that, Gautam. I think I'm still learning myself. So, from my experience, what I can probably, a couple of things I would love to share is that I think that anybody who wants to get into the ADR space or the arbitration space should feel passionate about it. If you're not passionate about this field, I don't think, or for anything that you do in life, it gets very difficult then to pursue it. And be sincere. focus on the possibilities that exist and not only on the limitations. So that would be the overarching, I would say, the thought in my mind. But in terms of more tangible, I would say that for younger lawyers, getting associated with the young organizations, so every arbitral institution, or most of them actually, have a young body attached to it. Just like MCIA has it, SIAC has it, ICC have it, ICA has it. And I think they're great platforms for them to learn, interact with their colleagues of the arbitration world, and to pick ideas from there. I think another thing which is picking up, especially in India as well now, is the tribunal secretary. I think that's a great way to learn on the ground of what skills are required of an arbitration lawyer, what skills are required of an arbitrator for them to build their career. And then, as any lawyer would say, and so would I, there is no substitute to reading, reading, and reading. So continue to read good articles, judgments, decisions, and continue to write. So probably those are my two bits for what the young lawyers could do.
Well, those are all excellent bits. I'm sure I could use all those tips myself, Neeti. So thank you for that. Although I'm definitely not young anymore. So okay, so this is just the last question, Neeti, as we close out this fantastic session. I can't thank you enough for this great session. We've all been through a very testing time this last 18 months or so, and we're still in the midst of a pandemic. And hopefully better days are not too far away. When we have these better days and we can all travel more freely again, is there one place that you'd really love to go to when you can?
Wow, I have a whole list planned out, Gautam, I can tell you that.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that.
When we hit the pandemic and we got into the whole lockdown in March, I had a full calendar of events planned out for that year. So, of course, some of them I'd visited earlier, and some new places. But I think I have to pick up only one place. I would love to go back to Bali. That's where I did my first diving course, and I have been meaning to complete my advanced course, and I just love to dive there. So I think that's going to be my first short trip, complete my advanced course on open water diving, and then maybe going off to South Korea.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I'm jealous. That's brilliant. Well, look, thank you very, very much, Neeti. It's been a really, really enjoyable session. I hope our listeners will have enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed speaking with you and listening to you and learning from you. We wish you and the MCIA every success as you go forward to the next several years. It's 5 years of the MCA and many, many more to come. So all the very best to you, Neeti. Thank you very much indeed for being part of this session. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon, either in India or in the UK.
Thank you so much, Gautam. It really has been a pleasure. I didn't even realize how this time just passed by. And thanks to Reed Smith and to you for giving me this opportunity and for inviting me. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Very much our pleasure. Thanks again, Neeti. All the very best. To all our listeners, please look out for the next podcast in this series. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Arbitral Insights is a Reed Smith production. Our producer is Ali McCardle. For more information about Reed Smith's global international arbitration practice, email Jose Estigaraga at jia@reedsmith.com. You can find our podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, Stitcher, reedsmith.com, and our social media accounts at Reed Smith LLP on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. This podcast is provided for educational purposes. It does not constitute legal advice and is not intended to establish an attorney-client relationship, nor is it intended to suggest or establish standards of care applicable to particular lawyers in any given situation. Prior results do not guarantee a similar outcome. Any views, opinions, or comments made by any external guest speaker are not to be attributed to Reed Smith LLP or its individual lawyers. All rights reserved.